everyone, this is Marcus Curtis from Iraq Currency Watch. On September 11th, I uploaded this video to our YouTube channel. It was called There Will Not Be a Dollar Crash on September 27th, 2016. Now, I wanted to be on record proclaiming that this dollar crash was not going to happen on that day. And you can scroll through and see some of the comments that were posted here. Now, I got 29 thumbs down and I got 37 thumbs up, and many people believed the dollar would crash on this day. Immediately, the comment section got bombarded with conspiracy theories. Now, the video footage you are watching now was filmed on September 27th, the day of the crash. Now, when I put this video up, I was immediately targeted in the comment area. You can scroll through and read some of them. They're pretty funny. This guy who goes by Gary 810 accuses me of working for the CIA. He says that I get paid to spread lies, and he says I put people in jail. Then he says I work for the cabal. Okay, well, this guy's kind of out there, so I gave a pretty sarcastic reply. I said, "Oh no, you caught me. How did you know?" There are many more tinfoiled hat theories to check out as you scroll through this comment area. Many conspiracy videos and blogs pick this day for the dollar to crash, primarily because they want to create urgency. There are people who make money off of you believing that the dollar is going to crash in one night. And many types of products are sold. Precious metals and prepper products drive the con job. So did the dollar crash today? Well, let's check it out. Down here in the right-hand corner, you can see it's 9/27/2016, and the time is 10:16 p.m. So let's see how the markets did today. First, let's look at the dollar. Oh, the dollar is actually up. The dollar did not crash. Look, the previous was 95.47, and it's 95.56, 95.57, so it's fluctuating between that penny, but the dollar is up. It did not crash today. It closed higher today, not lower. I was right, and the conspiracy theory nuts were all wrong. So the dollar did not crash today. Let's look at exchange rates. Okay, there are no drastic changes to the exchange rates among currencies. The dollar did not go down while every other overprinted currency went up. No global currency reset today. See, once again, you're wrong and I was right. So now let's look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Well, the market is up 133 points. It closed higher, not lower. Could these guys be more wrong? You can trace this hour by hour if you want to. Just grab this little ball thing and use your mouse to go anywhere you want. Okay? You can even go all the way back to the beginning if you want. But you can see that it never really went drastically down throughout the course of the day. Okay, and went a little bit lower at the start of the day, but it ended up 133.47 points higher. So it's higher, not lower. Well, let's look at NASDAQ. Let's see what NASDAQ has to say. Oh, well, look, NASDAQ is up 48.22%, and it's got 5.96% for the year. And the Dow Jones is up, and there's no drastic changes in currencies. And, oh, look, the dollar is higher. Yet we are supposed to believe that this whole global economy was going to come crashing down on September 27th, 2016. In this video, many people disagreed with me on a lot of different things. Now, during the course of the discussion in the comment area, a lot of good information was shared. The problem is real economics is boring, and you need to learn real economics to debunk this crap. Conspiracy theories make everything exciting, and most people who fall for this don't have any background in economics. They are the victims here. So I want to present the other side of the case. I want to tell you why the dollar cannot possibly crash in one night, and right now the dollar is actually a lot stronger than these people want to admit. Right now, I want to show you why the dollar is stronger and build a case that will be hard for conspiracy nuts to disprove. The only thing they can claim is that I work for the cabal or the CIA. Meet Lindsey Williams. This man has made a name for himself in the conspiracy theory world. He claims to get information from the men who really run the global economy. These guys are supposed to be bankers and oilmen. Now, Lindsey has made predictions with dates for a global currency reset for years. His last prediction was in 2013. He said it would happen in the first quarter of 2014. He's made a lot of outrageous claims. Well, listen for yourself.
But not yet. Now, here goes. You've had plenty of warning to write this information down. I almost shudder as I give this. And Chris, you feel free to break in. Maybe you've heard something about this and maybe you haven't because you're very knowledgeable of what's going on. There is going to be a global currency reset. Are you catching this? This is not a collapse of the American dollar. This will bring about the American dollar losing its status as the world premier reserve currency. This will cause Washington to be able to say to the American people, we must confiscate your pension funds because we have no more choice. The Chinese aren't showing up to buy our Federal Reserve offers of bonds and T-bills. The Japanese aren't showing up anymore. The oil-rich countries, Saudi Arabia and others, they aren't showing up anymore. They don't trust the American dollar. They've had it. They've done with it. You know what China said a week ago? And they aren't buying them anymore. And it will be an excuse when this global currency reset takes place. It will be an excuse for all the president and Congress to come out and say, folks, we have no choice. Either collapse the entire country immediately, or you're going to have to let us go into your pension funds and take them. And this will be the excuse that they use. I've already been told this. Then shortly after that, or within the same time frame, you may have a currency devaluation.
According to the global currency reset theory, everyone around the world is going to abandon the use of the dollar. This will bring all the dollars back to the United States, and the dollar will tank. Now, this claim was made that it would happen in the first quarter of 2014. Then in the middle of the first quarter, it was changed to the end of the second quarter of 2014. But then at the end of the second quarter, the dollar took off like a rocket. Here's an article that says in 2014 the dollar had its best year since 2005. This whole time these guys said the dollar was going to crash. The dollar was going up. It compared the growth to 2005 before the 2008 meltdown. But these guys are saying that the dollar is going to tank and lose value, and everybody around the world is going to reject it. Here's a Newsmax article that has the same information. Here's Reuters dollar index on track for best annual gain in 9 years. Yet these guys are out there saying the dollar is going to crash, the dollar is going to collapse, calamity in the streets, the media, it's all smoke and mirrors. But really, that's not what's happening here. Okay, here's China's foreign currency reserves. This is a site called Trading Economics. Now, in 2013, Lindsay says that China was getting rid of all of their dollars. And as of July 7th, 2016, China still has $3,175 billion US dollars in their reserves to back their currency. Now, their currency gets its value from the dollar. So $3,175 billion US dollars is held by China right now to give their currency value. Now, Lindsay said that all nations would get rid of its dollars in 2014. But this chart here tells a different story. So we see a reduction in 2015, and you can see in the quarters, here's the first quarter of 2015, and we can see that the dollar is going down from still over the 3 trillion mark. But we get into the first quarter here of January 2016, we went down a little bit, but then it went up, then it went down, and then it went back up again. So you see it's fluctuating. This whole thing is fluctuating normally, like it normally does. Okay, so let's click on the 5-year total. When we see this over 5 years, we see a whole different story. This is the point when Lindsay said that China would sell its U.S. dollar holdings. But look what happened all the way up into 2014. And in the first part of 2015, China is buying a lot more dollars. Then we get into 2015, and look what happened. China sells all of their dollars. And now we're back into 2016. Okay? So basically, we're at the same point here. There's a little bit less in 2016, but no drastic change. So you can see the point when the dollar took off like a rocket, just as the article said. So all these global currency reset guys were wrong on their dates in 2014 and in 2015, and they have been wrong on every date they set in 2016. So first they said the dollar was going to collapse sometime during the month of April. Now, then during the course of that month, they changed it to May. And do you see a pattern here? They got to keep the fear going, and they've got to keep the urgency going, okay? And then they chose May 28th, 2016, because your fear combined with your urgency sells their products, okay? So after that day passed, they chose September 27th, 2016. Now, allow me to show you why the dollar is actually stronger than these people claim. Now, I've put together a pretty good case, and here are the reasons why I think the dollar is actually strong. Now, I don't believe the dollar can crash in one night. Global demand for the dollar remains high. So here is the first reason why the dollar is stronger than a lot of people think. Here's a list of countries that use the US dollar as their official currency. All of these countries you see in this list use the dollar because they don't have their own currency. That is why the dollar is the official currency for these nations. So as we scroll through this list, we can see here's Ecuador, and there's a bunch of nations in there. Here's Guam. Okay, and, we can scroll down, we see the Marshall Islands, and I guess if we scroll up and count through all of these, there's about 14 of them here. They use the dollar exclusively because they don't have their own currency. The source is Encyclopedia Britannica, and the year is 2015. The British Isles, and there's 3 more right here. So there are a lot of countries that use the US dollar only, and because they don't have their own currency. So reason number 2 is the quasi-use of the dollar, okay? Reason number 2 is there are dozens of countries around the world that have the quasi-use of the dollar. You can go there and buy things with their currency, or you can use the US dollar. And it's Barbados, Bermuda, Bahamas, Cayman Islands. So you see there's several countries like that. Dozens and dozens of countries around the world have dual currencies in circulation, okay? So, and the reason why they do that is because it gives their currency strength. Okay, reason number 3 as to why the dollar is strong is because the US dollar will remain the world's reserve currency. And this is at least for the time being, and this is, of course, according to Investopedia. So let's scroll down and read a little bit of this article. Okay, these are facts, folks. Despite these predictions of the US dollar's demise, the doom and gloom never seems to pass. Okay, instead, the US dollar has strengthened significantly during 2014 to 2015 in the wake of economic headwinds in Greece, China, and other places around the globe. At this point in time, it appears the calls for the death of the dollar are unfounded. Okay, so let's scroll down a little bit. The rise of the Chinese yuan. Okay, many have that questions on this. Those predicting the demise of the U.S. dollar point to China as a major concern. China is pushing hard to have the renminbi or yuan lifted as a reserve currency status. By gaining reserve status, central banks might begin to increase their yuan holdings. The Chinese government has been pleading its case to the IMF, but it must prove that the yuan is available for international markets, and China has discussed opening up its markets to the international investment. However, China decided unexpectedly to devalue the yuan in August of 2015 in a move that surprised international markets. China devalued the yuan, causing the largest one-day loss in 20 years. This seems to conflict with its attempts to become a reserve currency. Okay, so the Chinese government states that the devaluation will allow the currency to be more market-driven. Well, we will see about that. A lot more can be said about this. Okay, so here is a list of reserves that contain U.S. dollars. Okay, China, this is March of 2016, 3,305,445 million. Japan, 1,262,509 million. Eurozone, 761,679 million US dollars. Switzerland has 649,190 million. Saudi Arabia has 555 billion US dollars. Republic of Taiwan, 425 billion 978. Russia has 398 billion 200 million US dollars for the ruble. Okay, India has 371 billion 280 million. South Korea has 369 billion, and on it goes. All of these countries have US dollars in their central bank to give their currency value. Look at all the countries that have US dollars. Okay, that's a pretty extensive list. Reason number 4 as to why the dollar is strong is because the dollar has assets. Now, I caught a lot of flack for saying this, but the U.S. has gold in their reserves to be used as an asset for the currency. Now, all the currency is covered by this gold. Only a portion of the base money supply is covered. Gold is only one type of asset that the United States uses. Now, everybody says that Nixon removed us from the gold standard. All of these conspiracy people leave comments declaring this on our website. But Nixon did not remove us from the gold standard. FDR removed us from the gold standard. Many find that hard to believe, but let's check it out. On this day in history, okay, June 5th, I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. Let's read this. 1933. FDR takes United States off gold standard. Okay, on June 5th, 1933, the United States went off the gold standard, a monetary system in which currency is backed by gold. Okay, when Congress enacted a joint resolution nullifying the right of creditors to demand payment in gold. The United States had been on the gold standard since 1879, except for an embargo on gold exports during World War I. But the bank failures during the Great Depression of the 1930s frightened the public into hoarding gold, making the policy untenable. So you can read this and get more of the information here. But it was FDR that removed us from the gold standard. Nixon removed us from Bretton Woods, and this was called the Nixon shock. And you can read through this and you can get some of the details. Okay, so what was Bretton Woods? That's a big question. July 1st to July 22nd, 1944, there was a conference held in Bretton Woods. Okay, world leaders, it was Bretton Woods Monetary Conference, enacted a new monetary system. World leaders put the U.S. dollars in their reserves all around the world. In 1971, that is what Nixon ended, was this Bretton Woods system. Okay, and he enacted a lot of other monetary policies. In 1973, an agreement is reached with Arab nations to sell oil only using U.S. dollars. In return, the United States would provide these nations with military protection. Now, the promise of wealth also came with this agreement, and this is known as the petrodollar system. Now, the United States protects this system. In 2001, Saddam started selling oil in euros, and we started making invasion plans. Omar Gaddafi has 2 oil summits to discuss using another currency to sell oil. And all of a sudden, Obama says Gaddafi has got to go. This is because the U.S. protects the petrodollar system. So this is an article by Investopedia, and it talks about how the petrodollar affects the U.S. dollar. Now, you can read through it to get some of the details. Now, oil is only sold in dollars by most Arab nations today, and this creates global demand for the U.S. dollar. The system has caused the globalization of our economy with other nations. So as long as oil is sold in dollars overseas, there will be a high demand for the dollar. This makes the petrodollar system reason number 5 as to why the dollar is stronger than what people actually think. The United States Bullion Depository is one of 4 locations where gold is held. This is Fort Knox to the right. Now, right away, conspiracy people are going to say that's complete BS. There has not been an audit since 1953. Well, these conspiracy guys ignore that they opened up the vaults in 1974 and allowed the media to film the gold. Here is the World Gold Council's website. These guys keep track of the yearly mining totals and gold supplies around the world. They verify that the United States has gold. This is what their bio says. The World Gold Council's 17 members are some of the world's most forward-thinking gold mining companies and have operations in over 40 countries. They work to ensure gold mining is responsibly undertaken with measurable economic benefit to the countries in which they operate. Meet Edmund C. Moy. He was the director of the United States Mint for 5 years. Now, he served as director from 2006 until 2011. And as you scroll through his bio, you will discover that Mr. Moy has also worked in other departments of government, including, but not limited to, the National Mediation Board, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and the list goes on and on. Actually, this is a pretty impressive resume. He has a pretty extensive background. Now, there's a reason why I'm showing you Mr. Moy's bio. So Ed Moy wrote an article for Newsmax. Is there gold in Fort Knox? And the answer is yes. Ed says that he personally saw the gold with his own eyes. He says that he can confirm that the gold is there. Now, you don't have to take my word for this. Just listen to his testimony for yourself.
Past director of the United States Mint was here at the Baltimore show. Edmund Moy tells some stories about his tenure as director of the Mint.
You already heard the top 3 questions. The 4th question that I usually get is there really gold in Fort Knox? And I'm one of the very few people in the United States that can actually say, I've been to not only have I been to Fort Knox, I've been to inside Fort Knox, and I've seen the gold, so I know it's actually there. One of the responsibilities of the Mint director is, besides running the Mint, which makes our circulating coins, our numismatic products, and our precious gold bullion, I also have the United States Mint Police, and that's 350 people with very big guns. And one of their jobs is to protect our nation's gold reserves, which are primarily at Fort Knox, but also at our Denver and our West Point facilities. And as the new Mint director, it's usually pretty traditional for the Mint director then to visit all the various facilities, which I ended up doing every single year, making my rounds at every single facility, holding town halls at every single shift for every single employee, just to make sure the whole family was singing out of the same hymn book. And one of those facilities is the Fort Knox. And it is everything that, I remember the first time seeing it, there it is on a very large mound, and all the trees have been cut down around it, and it just stands there shining in the sun. And you think of Goldfinger, you think of what might be in it, and then here's Mint director, I'm going through all the levels of security to get inside. And my heart was beating really hard. You're one of the few people that have a chance to experience history. And so anyway, when I finally got in and the big front doors open up, and when they shut, they make a huge resounding thud when they're locked again. That's all I can tell you without having to kill everybody in the audience. But I can say that we have some very dedicated employees, both on the civilian side and United States Mint Police, that are there. There's a lot of gold. And one of my first observations about the gold there was you think about modern good delivery bars, the 400-ounce bars that are made in Switzerland. Think of shiny gold. And these bars at Fort Knox are look like dirty gold with some corrosion on them, and they're not as yellow. And so that was one of the first things: is this real gold there? And then you realize, Roosevelt had made it illegal for Americans to physically possess gold coins. And he melted all those gold coins, and that's what ended up being the initial stock at Fort Knox. And a lot of those coins are 22 karat gold, which then have impurities. And a lot of it wasn't refined when it was made into these bars that ended up making it into Fort Knox. And so when you take a look then at each bar, you realize what history is behind it, how many coins must have been melted in order to make the bar, and what life stories must have been part of all that. The other interesting thing about Fort Knox is that the gold needs to be audited. And so once a year, the U.S. Mint Police coordinates with the Treasury Inspector General and coordinates with the Mint Chief Financial Officer, and they have to audit the gold. And when you take a look at these bars, each one's numbered. They have to be taken out, counted, and assayed to make sure they still have everything in it that they're supposed to. And then when it's all done, they're put back in the same order that they're taken out. And so when you take a look at these vaults, again, I can't tell you how much is in there and how they're organized, but there's a lot of bricks in there, and they each have to be handled carefully. And it's audited once a year. You can go to the Treasury website under the Office of the Inspector General and look for the audit report to verify that that gold is actually there. So I can personally vouch that there is gold at Fort Knox, and I personally have seen it.
The Central Bank of China has been acquiring gold, and this chart shows a portion of China's gold supply that is used to back their currency. So as you can see, the currency total as of July of 2016 is 1,823 tons. Now only 2% of their currency is covered by this asset. And here's a list of countries that have gold to back their currency. The United States has 8,133 tons of gold. The highest they had was 8,149. Germany had 3,378 tons, Italy over 2,000, France over 2,000, and you can see the list goes on and on. Now these countries have gold as an asset that back their currency, but not all of their currency is backed by this asset. A few years after the 2008 meltdown, Ron Paul has been able to question Ben Bernanke about a few different topics.
You know, the price of gold today is $1,580. The dollar during these last 3 years was devalued almost 50%. When you wake up in the morning, do you care about the price of gold?
Well, I pay attention to the price of gold, but I think it reflects a lot of things. It reflects global uncertainties. I think the reason people hold gold is as a protection against what we call tail risk, really, really bad outcomes. And to the extent that the last few years have made people more worried about potential of a major crisis, then they have gold as a protection.
Do you think gold is money?
No.
It's not money. Even if it had been money for 6,000 years, somebody reversed that and eliminated that economic law.
Well, it's an asset. I mean, it's the same. Would you say Treasury bills are money? I don't think they're money either, but they're a financial asset.
Why do central banks hold it?
Well, it's a form of reserves.
Why don't they hold diamonds?
Well, it's tradition, long-term tradition.
Well, some people still think it's money. I yield back. My time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, now listen to what Ron Paul asked Ben Bernanke, and listen to Ben Bernanke's response.
Would you say Treasury bills are money? I don't think they're money either, but they're a financial asset.
Why do central banks hold it?
Well, it's a form of reserves.
Why don't they hold diamonds?
Well, it's tradition, long-term tradition.
So Ben Bernanke says that gold is an asset and that central banks hold it. Ron Paul agrees.
Gold is a currency. It is still, by all evidences, the premier currency where no fiat currency, including the dollar, can match it.
So, Ben Bernanke says gold is an asset, and Alan Greenspan says that gold is a currency. No wonder people are so confused.
Gold serves a very important place in monetary reserves. And the question is, why do central banks put money into an asset which has no rate of return, but cost of storage and insurance and everything else like that? Why are they doing that? If you look at the data, with a very few exceptions, all of the developed countries have gold reserves. Why?
So Ron Paul says that central banks hold gold, and he asks why do central banks hold it. Ben Bernanke says gold is an asset, and he said that it's tradition to hold it. And Alan Greenspan says all the developed countries, including America, has gold in their reserves. And he asked the question, why? Now, Ben Bernanke had a few more things to say. I thought it was interesting, so I want to show you what else Ben Bernanke had to say.
If it's true, and I don't know if you agree with that or not, that consumer spending is an important issue.
Well, it is an important issue, Congressman, but you're mistaken in saying that the Federal Reserve has spent any money. You say $5 trillion. We have lent money. We have purchased securities. That's not buying. That's not dissipating, the money. We've gotten all the money back. As an article over the weekend by Alan Sloan showed, in fact, the Fed has been a major profit center for the U.S. government. We've turned over profits in the last 2 years of $125 billion. So we are not costing any money in terms of budget deficits or anything like that. In terms of what we were trying to do, of course, the reason the Federal Reserve was founded a century ago was to try to address the problems arising from financial panics, which did, by the way, occur in an unregulated environment in the 19th century. We provided liquidity and short-term loans to help financial systems stabilize. We did that not because we particularly care about the managers or the shareholders of financial firms.
So did you catch what Ben Bernanke said? All you conspiracy guys are going to go nuts. Ben Bernanke said that the Federal Reserve in the last few years have turned over profits to the federal government of $125 billion. What about gold repatriation? Gold repatriation refers to plans of various governments to bring home their gold stored outside of their home country. So as you scroll down, you'll see some of the details here, some of the background. In the past, nations from across the globe have stored their gold in the Federal Reserve Bank of New York for numerous reasons. There's a bunch of reasons. But conspiracy theory people will have you believe that people around the world are losing faith in the dollar, and all these countries want their gold back because they no longer trust the American dollar. They don't trust the American economy, and they want their gold back. So Venezuela is the 15th largest holder of gold according to the World Gold Council, and their gold was held in the U.S., Canada, and European central banks. Now, they asked for all of their gold back. So these nations are getting their gold back, and America still has 8,133 tons of gold. Ed Moy said that at one point, America held almost 20,000 tons in combined totals. Okay? So as you can read through this, you'll discover that the Federal Reserve is not the only one giving people back their gold. Nations are asking their gold to be returned from several locations. Okay, in 2013, the German Central Bank announced plans to repatriate 300 tons of its 1,500 tons of gold. Okay, and the U.S. Had 374 tons to be returned. Okay, so in 2013, only 5 tons was shipped. Then in 2014, they shipped 85 tons. And then in 2015, they shipped 110.5 tons. Now, I don't know how much Germany got this year, but Germany almost has all their gold back that they requested. And they gave a deadline of 2020 to have this accomplished. Okay, so let's look at Austria. Okay, Austria currently holds 80% of their 280 tons in London, 17% in Austria, and 3% in Switzerland. Citing the need for diversification, Austria announced that they want to repatriate gold from London during 2015. So you see, the Federal Reserve is not the only bank that people are getting their gold from. But conspiracy theory people will tell you that everybody's taken their gold out of the central bank and that we don't have any gold left because everybody got their gold. Well, America still has 8,133 tons of gold that belongs to them, even if all these banks claim their gold back. So don't fall for the hype that these conspiracy guys put out there. They're just trying to scare you into buying gold, and they're trying to scare you into buying silver. So central banks around the world have gold to back their currency. It's used as an asset. Not all currency is backed by gold, okay? The United States has gold too, but only a small portion of their currency is backed by this asset. They have other assets that back the rest of the currency. And yet we are to believe that no one wants our dollar and everybody wants to get rid of the dollars. And remember the reasons I gave you why the dollar is strong. One, it's a currency used by nations because they don't have their own currency. 2, it's a reserve currency. 3, it's a currency in circulation with other currencies. It's used as a dual currency. At 4, the petrodollar. And 5, the dollar has assets. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. And I would say do your own research and put all the conspiracy theories to rest.